Hi there. I'm Tony Sindelar, a learning designer working in higher education. Today, I'm here to talk about a problem that is by no means unique to higher education: managing email. If you're watching this, my guess is that email is a source of stress and possible anxiety in your life, and managing that inbox is something you'd like to be better about. So, I have three goals for this video. My hope is that after watching this, you'll think a little differently about your email, a little differently about productivity, and maybe adopt some habits that will make your life a little happier. As an academic, I got to cite my sources. And for me, the two big ones are Getting Things Done by David Allen, often acronymized as GTD, and Merlin Mann, who writes and podcasts about email and productivity and coined the term inbox zero. What I have to say in this video borrows heavily from those two, filtered through my own experiences and ideas. I don't know if I would say that I am good at email, but I am very systematic about it. And people who work with me often ask how I get done, what I get done using email, and why my inbox looks the way it does. As you can probably guess, there's no magic trick, but my belief is that finding a system that worked for me was a critical survival step early in my higher ed career, and as a knowledge worker who spends a lot of time sitting at a computer clicking buttons. I started out working in an IT job where I helped coordinate a help desk, and I'd receive literally thousands of emails a day. This was in the dark ages before we had ticketing systems and things like that. When someone wrote to the help desk, it went to a bunch of staff, and we got CC'd on every response to that, and all the replies and so on. It was a fire hose of email. I was also working lots of projects where email was the de facto way of communicating on projects, and so there would be really important information that could potentially get lost in that clutter of things I didn't need to know about, or at least didn't need to be reacting to moment to moment. So I needed a system that was going to help me separate those different parts of my work life, and get the information I needed when I need it. And that's kind of where I started developing the systems I use today that help me manage both my email and my attention and my awareness of what's going on. So let's talk about what's wrong with email. Despite how cool and futuristic my image up there would have you believe email is pretty old technology. It goes back to the 1970s. For something that's been around so long, you think we'd be a lot better at it. But my opinion is a lot of people not great at email. Most people think they're okay. It's kind of like driving in that way, where I think most people are worse at it than they think they are. But there are things about the way email is and the way we use email that kind of add to it, that make it bad. Lots of people can reach you. People have kind of unlimited access. If I called you in the middle of the night at your house, I would be a monster. But it is socially acceptable for me to send you an email in the middle of the night. For the recipient, there's only so much you can do to manage the amount of email you get. Replying to an email leads to more email. Not replying to some emails leads to more email. It's kind of a no-win situation there. It also does not at all help that a lot of workplaces aren't always great at picking the right modality for the task at hand. There's emails that should be meetings, there's meetings that should be email, and everywhere in between. To me, the biggest problem with email, especially work email, is email as an interrupter. Maybe you've seen one of these alerts before. In my work in higher education, I've done a lot of meeting with professors in their offices, usually with their computer nearby. These are very smart, hardworking, highly educated individuals doing the kind of labor that requires deep thought and concentration, and yet many of them have a thing that pops up in the corner of their screen, provided by Outlook or another email app, that alerts them every time they get a new email. A decent number of those people get some kind of audio chime or alert that they've gotten that message as well. And they get that for everything, from the thing that might be an important thing from, a student or their supervisor, or, just the latest alert from some mailing list or offer of some deal that they're not going to take part of. But they get these things and it disrupts their work. They have opted into a system where email is making their lives more stressful, making them be less productive, and just generally making them less happy. it's forcing you to multitask. And what we know about multitasking is it basically doesn't work. So these are things that you should turn off, you can turn off. And if you only do one thing today from watching this video, look at what kind of alerts and pop-ups and chimes you get related to email and other messaging tools that you might use, and be mindful of, are you getting those kind of alerts when you want to, or maybe you're getting alerts that you don't need or you want to get in a different way. That's something you could stop and do right now to try and improve your life. So, do you need a system? Can we solve email with a system? I think you do. I think you can make your life better if you are systematic about things. Some people will try and sell you on a specific system. Buy my book. I don't have a book. Sign up for my membership. I don't have an email related membership that you can sign up. I am not trying to extract money out of you. And so I'm going to give you some general purpose advice here. I think the best system is the system that you can actually stick with. Like other places where we try and build habits in our lives to improve it, the most important thing is one that's going to be sustainable for you and meet your needs. I don't think that this is a one-size-fits-all situation. You need something that's going to make your life easier, and specifically, you need something that's going to make your life basically less stressful, something where you do not feel bad about your email. What you do not need is a new categorization system where you spend a bunch of time adjusting it and obsessing about it. Managing email is not your new hobby. That is not what you need. Even if that's going to help you get down to inbox zero, that is not necessarily going to make your life better. I want you to spend less time thinking about email, not more. But that less time can include having a system. So whenever you're going to think about a system, solving some kind of problem, you got to think about your resources. For me, there's 3 big resources in thinking about kind of knowledge work and how I do my work day to day: time, attention, and energy. These are finite. They are irreplaceable. You only get so much each day, and once you use them, they're gone. I have so far found 0 ways to create these out of thin air. It's very hard to be productive if you don't have enough of these, and really the right ratio of them all the time in the day is not going to help you if you are completely depleted of energy and attention. So to me, it's worth thinking about, where do we spend these things? Because where we spend our time and energy and attention defines a lot about what is important to us. If you're spending your time, energy, and attention on stuff you don't care about, you're probably not going to be very happy most of the time. And what we want to do is find a way that you can spend at least some of those resources on things you do care about. And why am I talking about these things in the context of email? Well, you could get really good at managing email, but that's not really necessarily what you want to do. Like, that's not a place where I want you to spend all day of your life. That's not where I want to spend all day of my life. But maybe having a system to make your email more manageable will free up some of these things so that you can then spend them on other parts of your job, or things that in your life outside of your job that don't always get the time and energy and attention that you'd like them to get, that will make you feel better about maybe not just your work, but your life. I think that a good system helps protect these 3 things so that you have a little bit more control over where they get spent. So, reality check. What is your inbox like today? If I was doing this as a workshop, I might go around the room and ask people to maybe write down a number that they don't show to anybody else, but like how many messages in there, how many unread, how much of that do you think is actually important? And then maybe on the pain scale, how do you feel about that? My guess is if you're watching this video and we're 10 minutes in here, you don't feel great about your answers to these questions. Maybe you have thousands of unread emails. Maybe you have tens of thousands. That's not inherently a problem. It's only a problem if you feel bad about it, or it is getting in the way of you getting your work done and living the life you want to live. So, if you're still watching this, my hope is that you are invested in changing your life a little bit. The fact that your inbox has too much stuff in it should not necessarily make you feel bad. It's not entirely your fault. You didn't put those emails there. Other people did. So we need a system that's going to let us take control of things. You might start by declaring email bankruptcy and just deleting everything there. I know some brave folks who will do that. A lot of people are too afraid to do that because they fear that there's important stuff in there, and I'm willing to concede that there is important stuff there. And guess what? Declaring bankruptcy isn't actually going to really help you if you don't build a new system. You're just going to be back in the problem place you are today in a few months or so when that stuff piles up. You need a system so that stuff doesn't pile up to begin with. So, like a lot of productivity tips, this can kind of start to sound like common sense, but as I am frequently reminded as I travel through the world, common sense, it's not so common. So, inbox zero, that is our goal. The goal of Inbox Zero is to process your inbox. You need a system for doing that so that you can kind of look at each message as it comes in and figure out what you're going to do. You do not get a merit badge for being good at email. You do not get a merit badge for getting to Inbox Zero. You just get to feel a little bit better for being more in control of the things that you're trying to do in your life. You also don't want this to be an all-consuming thing. You should not feel bad that you did not get through all your email today. You should not feel bad that you didn't get to Inbox Zero. You just want to feel like you're a little bit more in control of what's going on. So, in the Inbox Zero system, there are only 5 actions for every email: delete, delegate, respond, defer, and do. Let's talk about each of these in turn. So, delete. If you have a zillion emails, you need to do this more. You are not deleting enough things. If you see a message, you assess it. You decide, is this clutter? Is this something I need to know? If it is not, get it out of your life. Delete it. The word delete is too scary. Guess what? A lot of email programs and clients have archive, which shuffles it off to the side and keeps it for forever for you. That's fine too. The important thing is it's not in your inbox anymore. This is the first because a lot of stuff in your inbox should be deleted, and you want to get more basically proactive at deleting things if it will come back later. Now, some people start to get like edgy and they'd be like, but what if it's going to be important later? Well, you could file important things later into a Byzantine folding system to try and make your life better, but you need to be real honest with yourself about what things are you actually going to have to refer back to. There may be types of work or types of projects where you do need all the things related to a given project stored in some folder so that you can account for it and report that to somebody. But for most of us, you get a lot of emails that you could probably just delete. Now, being able to delete means you got to be a little honest with yourself about like, do I actually need to think about this thing or come back to it later? But a lot of email should just go away. Particularly if you're getting a lot of email from mailing lists, you might think about unsubscribing and getting away from that. A strategy I sometimes use with people who feel real nervous or uncomfortable about this delete thing is open up your inbox, scroll way backward, go like 6 months back if you've got emails going that far back, and look at like 10 emails in a row sitting there in your inbox, and look at how many of them are irrelevant or ephemeral, or even if they were important, they were only important in a brief period of time 6 months ago, not anymore, and you probably don't need them anymore. So delete, do it more. Next up, delegate. You've got an email asking for something. It's some kind of request, maybe from someone you work with or someone you report to or someone from outside your organization. There's something that needs to happen here, but you are not necessarily the right person for it or the person that's going to be able to make it happen. So delegate means you forward it on, maybe with some additional context to somebody else that you work with or as part of your organization. Guess what? After you delegate it, you can delete it or archive it. Now, in a healthy organization, you're done. You've passed it on to somebody else. It's their responsibility. But somebody watching this video is thinking like, but how do I know it got handled? How do I know that it's taken care of? Am I still on the hook for this? And there are some types of delegation, depending on who it's from and the type of task, where you might need to make a note somewhere on a to-do list or on a calendar or somewhere else that is not an email in your inbox that says, follow up on that in 48 hours, 7 days, a month, whatever. And, that's okay. You may still want to feel like I need to be able to check off that the person I delegated it to did it, but do that somewhere else, not with an email hanging out in your inbox, getting in the way. All right, we've done delete, we've done delegate. Next up, respond. Sounds simple enough, but this is specifically for really quick things. You've got an email sitting there, it's got a question, it's got a request, something you need to do. Let's say that it is a task that is 2 minutes or less. And the thing to do here is just do it. Just reply to that email, and then you get to delete or archive it and move on. This might require you to do something outside of the email. You might need to go and grab a document, something like that. If it's something you can do real quick, just do it and move on. If not, maybe you're going to leave it for later. We'll talk about those other steps in a second. People have lots of strategies for this. There's the 5-sentence method of putting the entire text of an email down into 5 sentences. Some people will put the message in the subject line. There's different norms about productivity and politeness in terms of how short and brief can you be with certain audiences. Where's the difference between being succinct and being impolite? And those are going to be determined by the cultural context that you're operating in. But the challenge here is that there's lots of brief emails that can actually be big tasks. So just because it's a brief email from a high level person in your department might actually equal a ton of work. But if it's something you can just do and get out of your inbox, do it. And that covers respond. So next up, it's defer. Defer, I'm not going to deal with this right now. And, probably if you're watching this video, you're real good at defer. And the trick here is defer has to be in moderation. So you've got a request, somebody needs a task done or a report or a piece of information or a meeting to get scheduled or something. And you don't have time to do that right now. You're headed to another meeting. They emailed you at 4:59 p.m. on a Friday, whatever. You're deferring. You're leaving it there. You are not a bad person for having messages in your inbox. You may want to leave it marked as unread so it's easier for you to spot the next time you come back. And the key is you do this sometimes when it's a big thing that's going to require time and attention and energy that you don't have in this moment, but you don't do it all the time, and you don't set it up so that other pieces of information are in there mixed in with the stuff that you're gonna have to set aside time to do. Because if you're watching this, you've been doing this too much, and you want to make sure that the things that are deferred are easy to see there. I've mentioned it already. Some people get very fixated on having an empty inbox. They want to have that inbox zero thing. You don't get that merit badge. It doesn't make you a better person to have that. The fact that you've got a couple things in your inbox deferred that you're going to get back to when you've got the right resources to do it is fine. Do it. It's worth doing those things right when you're ready to do them, and not just trying to do them so that you can say, I did everything I needed to do, even if I didn't do such a great job on those. So, I think people get more comfortable with defer if you're doing great on those other parts, because then your inbox only has a couple things on it. And it's these are the things that I need to think about today, tomorrow, this week, this month, depending on the timeline of them. And it's easy when that's 3 or 4 things and not 700 things. You cannot think about 700 things. It will make you sad if you're trying to do that. All right. Last one there. 5th and final, the big one, do it. Tony, why is do it different than respond? Do it is more complicated. Do it is task-oriented. It often requires you to do something that's going to take more than 2 minutes. It's often going to require you to do something outside of the environment of email. Maybe you have to go finish writing a report before you can reply to somebody with the report. Maybe you need to set up a meeting. Maybe you need to get information from other people. Maybe you need to do research. Maybe that email is becoming a whole big project that you're now going to need to manage and take over. The big thing here is you're going to move out of email into some other context. That might be a to-do list. It might be something in your calendar. It might be a written to-do list. It might be sticky notes on your monitor, but you're moving from that email context. Maybe you're copying and pasting text from that email into some other context to help you with it, but you're moving it there. Some people think of their inbox as a to-do list, and that is actually kind of a dreadful way to live, because if you think about it, your inbox is the thing that anyone who knows your email has access to and can put stuff on it. An inbox where a to-do list where other people can add items to it and clutter it up, and it's mixed in with promotional messages and messages from mailing lists. That's not how you want to have a to-do list. You want the to-do list that you have control over and is organized and sorted in the way that's going to make sense for you. So do means probably moving it out of email into some other place where you manage or track or organize your tasks. And then guess what? Then you get to delete or archive that message because you're managing it elsewhere. So just as an example, I used to use a lot of sticky notes for my various to-do lists that I would have on my monitors. As I moved into more of a remote or hybrid role, that was less helpful because if I was working somewhere that I did not have my sticky notes, I didn't know what I need to do. For a while, I had the habit of taking a quick photo at the end of the day of my sticky notes to take with me on the go. But these days, I tend to use more digital related tools. And here's the sticky notes I literally have in the Stickies app on my computer with things I need to do or take care of. These are lists I control. Maybe I sort them by things that need to happen right away versus things that are going to happen later, things that require me to go and do things versus things that I can do whenever I want. But the key thing for me is these are not tasks mixed in with my email. You really want your inbox to just not be a list of projects that are on fire. People have such bad negative feelings about email. You don't want your inbox to be this thing that you feel bad about, this thing where you open up your email and you're holding your breath to see what's waiting for you there. You don't want it to be a mismatch of stuff that you care about lost in a sea of stuff that you don't. And in order to kind of get to that place, whether it's 0 or just whatever number you feel happy with, maybe it's a number with 1 decimal place in your current situation, and that'll feel good. You got to build up those good habits. Getting to an empty inbox, that's not something I would probably peg my value in life on. The state of your inbox is not a reflection of your success or well-being. Here, look. Big flex, my actual email inbox in Gmail right now. No new mail. Go me. Must be great. No, let me tell you, there's so much other stuff I have to take care of. I've got things with my car I need to fix. I have chores I have to do. I'm so behind on lots of stuff from being sick. I am sitting next to a pile of stuff I meant to eBay list on eBay months ago. I am not living in some minimalist paradise. I am surrounded by mess and clutter and sources of potential stress. It's just that my email is like super taken care of and it's not adding to that. So I've given you this system that will hopefully make your life feel a little bit better, but do not tie your self-worth to your email. There's more to life than email. People like tips, so let's run through a few productivity tips that might help you out with maintaining that system, building some better habits as we try and round out this video. Unsubscribe. Real talk, how many mailing lists are you on right now that are legit, no good, or have kind of not so great signal to noise ratios in terms of little bits of things you do care about lost among hundreds of things that you do not? How many other emails do you get every day from every service that you've ever bought one thing from? I personally, I buy a coffee at Dunkin' Donuts almost every morning as part of my routine. And for a long time, I was getting daily emails with them telling me about deals and points that I could make use of every day. Do I need those emails? I do not. I get a medium hot coffee, cream and sugar every day. I do not need to complicate that relationship with more emails. So you should take this time now. Another homework item for you today from this video. Identify some mailing lists that you can delete the messages from and unsubscribe them from. Hack, you can even search your inbox for messages with unsubscribe in them to see a bunch of things related to mailing lists. You can also sort by sender and do some batch deleting, but you got to get some of those out of the way. And it's not enough to just delete them. You got to unsubscribe from some. You got to treat the disease, not just the symptoms. You got to make sure it's not just getting rid of email, but getting rid of future emails. Now, someone out there is like, but there's an email that's like, it's a list that's like, it's really important for my field, and it's where everybody who's important is on that mailing list, and so I need to be there too. And that's fine. That's probably true. If you really need to be on that list to like do the work you need to do, and you're being honest with me and honest with yourself, that's fine, but maybe check what the settings and options are for that email list. Maybe you can get a digest option where instead of every message, you get a daily message with the summaries, or even weekly. Maybe you can get it set up so that it's not going to clutter your way. Maybe you can even do a really useful thing, which is set up a rule or a filter. So rules and filters, if you do not use these, this is another thing you need to start doing, is setting up tools so that messages basically get pre-sorted for you. So this is basically how you can have messages skip your inbox and go to a folder. I used to be in an organization where I would get so many of those types of messages, and they were things that maybe I needed to look at some point. And be aware of, but I didn't want them mixed in with the inbox stuff. And some of this might be messages coming from outside of your organization. Some of it you might be able to identify based on it's coming from this sender with a name of a professional organization I'm part of, or this specific mailing list, or whatever. And you could have a super complicated system that moves those into all kinds of folders. I will tell you my quick and dirty hack was they all go into a folder called broadcasts. And I look at broadcast after I'm done looking at all of my other emails, because broadcast mails are like, they're mails that are to a large audience. They're not a direct message to me. And I want my inbox to prioritize things that are like from another human to me. That gets my time and attention first before I look at the thing that's sent to everyone in my profession, everyone in my organization. I feel like this is also useful as like, a context switching kind of thing. When you are going through your email, you may be moving from one audience to another, and it's changing the types of problems you need to solve or the types of tasks you need to do. And by basically putting all of the stuff that comes from one kind of place in another bucket, it makes it easier for me to care about. Usually everything that's going into my broadcast messages, for example, very rarely is it anything that I need to take an action on. It's stuff that maybe I need to know about and will help me do other things, but it is almost never something that I need to reply to or make a decision based on. And so I want that grouped together as I'm kind of looking through the stuff where it's like, this is information I am taking in. So first off, unsubscribe from some mailing lists. Second, set up some rules or filters. Look up the difference between those depending on what email app you're using to pre-sort some of that mail. Another thing to think about is just doing email less. If you're like me, you spend a lot of time sitting in front of a computer, and you can be in this reactive mode where you're just like, a new email comes in, it's at the top of the list, and so I have to look at that. And it can be helpful to be intentional about when in the day you're processing email and letting email interrupt you versus doing the other things that you need to do for your work. And so it can be useful if you're, whether you're using an app or a website for getting email, like you don't need to have that open all the time unless you work for someone who tells you have to have that open all the time. And we should have another conversation about what that means. But you probably don't need to have that open all the time. If you feel like I want to have that open all the other time, you may check there are frequently settings for how often does that client check for email. So, the default is constantly. You might tune it down to every 5 minutes, every 30 minutes. If you don't feel like you can close that app entirely, you might at least slow down how often it is pulling in information. I think that the downside of the world we live in is where we can get information very quickly is that we sometimes want information all the time. But again, it goes back to that, like, are you inviting interruptions? I often ask people, what is the most urgent information you ever got via an email? Something that needed you to react or do something right away. And, occasionally somebody has something interesting to say to that, but most people don't, because really urgent information tends to arrive in other ways. It tends to be someone who's calling you or texting you or something like that, something direct like that versus an email. You are never going to get an email that says the building is on fire. If you work for an organization that communicates that the building is on fire via email, please stop working for that organization. Be mindful of how much you're letting email interrupt you and control your work day to day. All right, next up, tips and tricks. Templatize. If there are emails that you are writing some version of again and again, you got to make templates. There are specific tools out there for creating these in various industries. I'm not in one of those industries, but I do create a collection of Google Docs with kind of fill in the blanks for the emails that I send regularly. It's particularly useful if there's an email that I send somewhat like a couple times a year, and it's like I shouldn't be writing that email from scratch. That's in fact has the potential for me to leave out an important piece of information. So I create a template that I then pull up and and fill in the blanks on that and make sure that I'm sending it out with consistent information that needs to go out related to that event or task or whatever. If you're working in a collaborative environment, sharing templates or developing those templates with your team can be really valuable for making sure you're kind of consistent about information, language, tone of message, all of that. If you want to be really fancy, you might check out tools like TextExpander for setting up keyboard shortcuts for like the common things you find yourself putting in emails all the time. They're not a sponsor of this video, but the key idea here is, productivity. Do a little bit of work up front, save yourself time down the road, and make your life kind of consistent. This is a key thing where you're kind of shifting where are you spending that time as one of your finite resources so that you don't have to like pay as close attention later when you're crafting that email. So I've talked a lot about a lot of different things here. I have suggested homework from this video. Turn off or at least check your alert settings on your various tools that you get information about. I'm generalizing here about email. You might check what am I setting for things like Slack or Microsoft Teams or even text messages, and am I happy with the way those settings are configured? I'd love if you could unsubscribe from at least one list or promotional list or marketing set of emails you can do. It's easy to click delete, but if if you're going to get an email a day from that organization for forever, maybe take the extra 10 seconds and unsubscribe now. If you haven't set up rules or filters, set up one right now to move some stuff that you get all the time. It's just not as important into a bucket off to the side to some other folder. And then think about what are the messages that you find yourself sending a lot that you're writing out, you're typing out by hand each time you do it. And maybe those are things you could templatize in whatever tool is going to make your life better. I hope that you found some of the ideas in this video helpful. I hope you can take some of these and make your life a little less stressful, a little bit happier. I want to thank you for watching all the way through. I know this wasn't short. If you found any of the ideas in this helpful, consider checking out my other videos and writings over at Tony'sTeachingTips.com. Goodbye.